Thank you so much again for coming and being a part of this grand adventure. Many folks are asking, what are we doing next? How do we make this happen in other places? Well, John's about to talk to you about that. So in this last session, we're looking at bringing together all the things that we have talked about, experienced this day, or these past 3 days, I should say, and bringing that outside of this place and into the places in which we live and breathe and pray. So I will now turn this over to the well-dressed gentleman to my right, who some of you may or may not recognize. He is not going to a funeral, nor is he going to a job interview, as far as I know. So please welcome your host for the past 3 days, John Stevens.
It's a little low. It's not your fault. God made you that way. All right. So a lot of people have been asking me, what are we supposed to do coming out of here? What's going to happen with the video cameras? What's the plan, John Stevens? And I was like, I don't know. So last night I thought long and hard, and I guess I come up with a couple of things that we could talk about. So I guess the first thing that we should think about as we've come to these past couple of days is, okay, this is good. And we've had this reaction before where the bishop has written like a Pentecost pastoral letter, and it was great, and we've had the Year of Faith and all the different initiatives with that, and they've been great. But kind of a recurring question, a question that resounds after all these things is, well, how do we do this stuff? How do we make it happen? How do we make this a reality in the places where we go to church, in the places that we live? And hopefully, over the past couple of days, by learning some skills, you already have some tools to be able to make that happen. Hopefully, by praying with scriptures and talking to each other about your relationship with Christ, you've developed some skills that will help you with that. But wouldn't it be nice if everybody in our parish could have been here this week and participated and done this? Wouldn't it have been nice if that one person who always sits next to me, and you know who you're thinking about right now, who doesn't get this stuff, what if they were here? What if Father was here? And I'm just kidding. All the priests are here, and they gave up a lot to be here, so let's give them a hand. I mean, it takes a bold move to cancel a daily Mass at a parish. Fortunately, you're mostly the people who go to daily Mass, so thank you for coming. You made it a little easier. But let's just talk about what is this transformation process, okay? In the foundation document that we sent out in advance of this meeting and is in your appendix, it talks about the opportunity that's presented to us by the creation of a new archdiocese. And it says the creation of the new Archdiocese of Halifax-Yarmouth gives us the opportunity to reflect on the call of the gospel for our times and to engage in a process to transform ourselves to meet these new demands. And so transformation, as we've been talking about, isn't today. Today's part of it. There's stuff that's happened before, and there's stuff that needs to happen after. Transformation is what we're calling a multi-phased and highly consultative project. You may have noticed that we're collecting your feedback. This is not all set in stone. What you have to say will inform the next steps. So it's very important that you're here and that you're contributing. And it's a process for us to help determine how we are to be and how we are to live our faith in our present circumstances. All that cultural reality that Deacon Bob set up for us on day one, transformation is about saying, okay, some things haven't changed. Jesus is still Lord. God still exists. How do we translate that reality that we've all experienced into our times in a way that people can grasp and understand? And that's what we've been wrestling with over the last couple of days. And so at the diocesan level, we want to do things to support that transformation and to help make it happen. And so we have kind of what we call priority areas for transformation. These are our pastoral priorities in churchy language. And they are the evangelization of adults and their formation in faith, the evangelization of children, families, and youth through catechesis and youth ministry, and the evangelization of marriage and family life. And each of these priorities, we have some activities that are designed to support bringing these priorities alive in your parishes over the course of this year. And I want to zoom in particularly on adults. Anyone here not an adult? You should be at school. Okay. So transformation is a big part of what we hope to do with and for the adults in our parishes, the general, regular people who come to church and then beyond. We want to support that with some of the things that we're doing. We want to build up young adults, and so we've assigned, Father Rob, who spoke the other day, he's our new university chaplain, and so we're going to be focused on building up young adults on university campuses. And we're going to focus on those who want a deeper and ongoing formation through our Koinonia program. And we've been going through a process of evaluating that to make it more in line with what skills and themes people need to be working with to bring about the new evangelization. But what I want to talk about for us is this process that we're calling transformation. And it contains, like I said, it's multifaceted. And it contains many parts and pieces. One of those parts and pieces is today. But you'll notice all weekend, or all these past 3 days, we've had these cameras going. And people have been saying, how do I do this in my parish? Remember I said, wouldn't it be nice if that person was here? Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could take it to them? And so what we've done is we've recorded the main presentations for you to have and to use in your parishes. The workbook that you're working from, with some adjustments based on your feedback, real feedback that you're going to give us when we send out our evaluation after the fact. So if you were a gate jumper and didn't register, make sure we get your email address. Because we want your feedback. We want your ability to actually be consulted and have a say in how all this unfolds. And so the video series and the workbook will be available in parishes. Yes, Father Duncan, for free. Of course, the Archbishop's annual appeal is coming up, so give generously so I can deliver on that promise. The video series and the small groups. And our hope, our goal is that we talked a lot about taking our own responsibility this week, that you would be able to go back to the group that you're from. So if you're a parish council member, if you're a finance committee member, if you are a member of the Knights of Columbus or the CWL, if you're a DRE or a catechist, that you would go back to that group that you're from, those people that you know need to be here, and actually go through this process with them. It doesn't have to be 3 days like we did here. It could be a series of 6 or 7 evenings. You could take over your parish council meetings for a little while and do this. Wouldn't it be weird if we got into parish council and everyone said, what's the agenda? A reading from the Gospel of John. This is what we can clap, it's cool. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do the business of the church. Administration is part of how we bring all these things about, and leadership is very important in this. But one of the key things for our leadership is to be on the same page and to speak from the same vocabulary and to have the same values and vision for our church. And that's what we hope to be able to do with this. It's not a program so much as an opportunity for all of us to put into practice what we've been talking about. So that's going to be a key component. Those videos and workbooks will be available in the new year. We hope that you will work through them in your parishes with the various levels of leadership through that time, January, and through Lent, and kind of culminating or being reinforced by a live Lenten mission. Last year we had a live Lenten mission. We broadcast the bishop out of the cathedral in 2 languages, and almost 800 people watched at 14 different sites around the diocese. And so we want to be able to do that again. Imagine, if you could, that everybody, you went home, you did this study with your parish council, so there's 200 people here, and we engaged 2,000 people because you each led this with 10 different people. And they all gathered and heard the live Lenten mission. And we got their feedback about what's going on, what do they think about discipleship, what do they think about personal encounter, where are their heads at, where are their minds at, what are they thinking in there? Because as you can see, one of the elements there is a feedback system. That everything that we do, we want to hear from the people who participate. This is not like when God created the earth and he said, let there be light, and everything just kind of happened. We want to hear back. We want to get the feedback from this day, from the small groups that you'll be running, and we're trying to design an electronic process that's not as confusing as yesterday's activity. Sorry about that. And to be able to hear what people are thinking. And what would be neat, or fantastic really, is not only would we have that as a diocese, on aggregate, but because you're leading it in parishes, and people will say that I'm from parish X when they fill out those evaluations and those surveys, you'll have information at your parish to be able to make decisions. How often do we make decisions based on anecdotes? so-and-so came up to me after Mass and said this, and therefore that must be the only problem that exists in our church. You know? How often are we responding to the needs of the noisy instead of the needs of the needy? And so what do we need to do to get around that? We need to hear from those people. They may tell us things we don't like. They may tell us that our church isn't what it should be. They may tell us that there are things that they don't like about our church. And we may have to tell them, well, those things aren't changing, I'm sorry. Or we may say, I'm sorry, we need to change those things. And we have to know what those things are in order to make those changes. Otherwise, we'll just run off in 10 different directions. And that's what these building blocks are about. They're about giving us tools to evaluate ourselves and our communities among the mission of transforming our church. We're even going to go crazy. We're going to try and reach out to outside people. People maybe who aren't in church anymore but still have some cultural connection to the church. We have no idea how we're going to do this. If you work in communications or polling or something like that, set up a time to come meet with me, because we want to figure out how to do that. But we want to have that information as well, that feedback, to be able to say, this is what the people who are not in church think about us. This is what their needs are. This is what their hurts are. This is what their areas of darkness are, so that we can design outreaches and activities that actually meet people where they are, so we can invite them in. Not what we think they need. All that feedback that we're going to collect from outside and inside will form the content of our Assembly of the People of God in May. So that we will actually be talking about what the issues are. And our workshops will be focused on what to do about those issues. And that is the process that we hope to have over the next couple of months. And we hope that you guys will be key individuals and leaders in making that happen. We're going to provide the resources and the tools and the support as much as you need. But I live in Eastern Passage, and I can do what I can do there. I don't live in St. Anne de Russo or Yarmouth or Sheet Harbor, but you guys do. And so we need to carry the message out, each one of us, to where we are and to where we live. And I think that will get us started, right? We will begin through this process of transformation kind of a discernment. Who do we want to be, and also kind of where are we now? And we'll have those two things, and we'll be able to look at the tension of that. So the Assembly of the People of God is not the end. In fact, it's the beginning of just another phase. As Pope Francis has said, this discernment takes time. This is not having all the answers now. We didn't get into this boat in the last 2 minutes, and we're not going to get out of it in the next 2 minutes. This discernment takes time. Many think that changes and reforms can take place in a short time. I believe that we always need time to lay the foundations for real and effective change. And this is the time of discernment. And for us, this time is now. We need to start laying the foundations. No more can we stand at the empty hole in the ground and go, well, someone should pour the cement. Father, bishop, parish council, whoever. Now is the time to lay the foundations. Now is the time. But now is not necessarily the time to see everything change all at once. That is our process and proposal for transformation. That is what we think immediately, within the next 6 to 9 months, we can do to be able to take this to our parishes, to our people, to the people that we can all imagine that need to be here and hearing this, so that they can hear it. And so that we can hear from them, and so that we can make the next leap, the next step forward in the church that we're trying to transform ourselves to be. The church that seeks passionately after God's will and is empowered by the Holy Spirit. A church of disciples of Jesus Christ, who've personally encountered the mercy and saving works of Jesus, who give witness to that mercy and saving, who support one another in community, and who live with credibility. That's what we're trying to do. One step at a time. But we have other areas of priority, and we want to be able to not just say, well, it's just about adults, it's just about the people who are there. We heard this week people's passion, people's concern, people's real hurt for children, for families, for youth, and what's happening, and how they're alienated. And we want to be able to invite them into this process as much as we can. And so we need to look at our other areas of priority and say, how do these principles of discipleship, of witness, how do they apply to some of our other areas? So when we talk about children, and we talk about families, and we talk about youth, we've done something already where we've started a new program. And the program title is really important, I think. It's called Be My Disciples. It's our new catechetical program across the diocese. If you're not doing it in your parish, it's okay. You will. And but the title, Be My Disciples, is important. Remember on the first day, Eric talks about Cardinal Bergoglio saying how the kerygma gives life to things. That if there's no kerygma, if there's no personal encounter with Jesus underlying the ministries and efforts of our church, that they're sterile. If all we've done is change the books that we use for catechetics, yeah, we're going to be okay because we're going to have sound moral teaching and everything's going to be in line with the catechism of the Catholic Church. But if we don't change the way that we do it and the approach that people take when they do it, if discipleship, if witness, if credibility, if community, if those things in personal encounter, if those things are not present in our formation program with children and with their parents, then the program is baseline. It can only do and only have the life that we put into it and the life that comes from Christ. So as we continue to unfold Be My Disciples, continue to try and engage parents and catechists. It's this process of transformation that's underneath it all. This is only the vehicle. We need drivers who know where they're going. So these are the things that we need to focus on with children and families when we talk about our catechetical program. Our youth ministry in parishes, generally speaking, we're talking about young people who are past the catechetical age. Maybe they've been confirmed. By and large, our parishes don't have a lot going on in this regard. There are pockets of places where beautiful and interesting things are happening, and we should look at that and we should duplicate that. But all of our parishes are different, and they have different demographics. If you're in a rural area where there's a huge out-migration of young people or something like that, this looks a lot different than if you're in a fast-growing suburban area. And we want to support everybody at each level. And so we hope to have some programs and some supports in place that actually give consultation and energy and time and maybe even some money, if I can get it through the Finance Council, to help parishes where they are build up ministries to young people that form disciples, that give witness, that offer opportunities for personal encounter, that build amazing community. Somebody asked, I think it was the bishop was reflecting, and he said, when my son or daughter goes off to university, they come back and say that I lied to them. I'm the only one telling them about this stuff. How much better would it be if they had a community of peers and a community of families who believed and taught the same things? That when they went and played with other kids, that those kids believed the same things. That's how community goes into youth ministry. That's how we engage families. That's how we support one another. And that's what we need to start looking at. One way we do this in kind of a larger way, we give people an opportunity to have an experience of all these types of things, is our youth conference, Steubenville Atlantic. And so this year we did something insane. We made it closer. We moved it closer in time. It's the first week of July. First weekend of July. That's the last week that school gets out. Monday, June 30th is the day school gets out in Nova Scotia. That's that weekend. We did that to hope that people won't be away at camp, they won't be away at vacation, they won't have jobs yet. They'll have that weekend available for this experience. And we moved it to Halifax. 65% of our participants in the conference, and we're talking 600 to 800 people, come from the Halifax area. The cost of going to Antigonish every summer where the conference has been has risen 40% in the last 7 years. That's $2,000 there and back in bus costs that were taken off the table. Why? So that young people can have an opportunity to experience everything that we've been talking about here. A basic proclamation of Christ, an opportunity to experience His love and mercy, the ability to see that they're not alone. You know what the number one thing people say in surveys, young people say in surveys about the Steubenville Conference? It's not the music, which is amazing. It's not the speakers, which are fantastic. The sacraments, yeah. They say it's good to see that I'm not alone. Right? That young person who comes back and say, you lied to me, now knows you didn't lie to me. I'm not alone in this. This isn't weird. This is amazing. So I want to fill the column with young people. And I want them mostly to be from Halifax and Yarmouth, the diocese, because I'm selfish. And I want our young people to experience this. And then we talk about marriage and family life. So last year we had a very successful, I think, week of life and family that was sponsored by the CCCB. And we want to continue that, whether the CCCB does it or not. So we just call it the Week of Life and Family. instead of maybe the National Week of Life and Family, because we don't know what's going to happen there. But we want to support it. We supported regional activities and made it possible to do family-based activities in parishes during that week, and we want to expand that, improve upon that, and do that again this year to put the focus in on families. But honestly, if we're putting focus in on transformation, we talk about catechetics, we're doing ministry to families. If we talk about the conversion of adults, we're doing ministry to families, because adults generally are parents of children. So this is how everything fits together. One builds on the other. This is not a separate endeavor. They're just areas of focus within the same mission of transformation. And then the Pope has done us a solid. He called an extraordinary, a solid is like a hip, youthful term for like he did us a good thing. And, sorry, forgot where I was. And he called an extraordinary synod on marriage and the family for next fall. And what he wants to do, and what I've read so far about it, is have a broad engagement of the base. They want to be able to use the internet to get feedback from all over the world, and they want this to address some of the painful questions that we have around of marriage and family, of the changing nature of family, and how does it interact with our traditional understanding of it, and how do we be pastoral and compassionate within all that. These hard questions that we've been having, that synod looks like it wants to answer, or at least reflect on. And so we're going to be doing whatever needs to be done to participate in that, to have our voice heard in that, and that's going to be, I think, a huge benefit church-wide and locally for our families as we reflect on those questions. So this is a brief overview of our pastoral plan for the year. We have a handout for you. We'll get it out in the small groups of a calendar for the year that has all of our major dates, some of the things that I've talked about that have some timings attached to them. It's tentative. Obviously, we've got to make sure everything's good to go and there's not too many conflicts on any given week. But this is what we think is going to happen. But not much will happen if we don't go out from where we are today and carry it on in our parishes. I think one time I was sitting at a large conference. There's about 600 or so university students. And I said, where do they come from? How did they get them all together? And then I realized they come from small groups. They were groups of people who knew each other on campus, who knew each other at all these different campuses across the country. And so they came in 5s and 10s and 20s with their peers and their friends. And that's how they got to 600. And we've heard a lot about small groups today. And I think it's important to think about that, to think small, to think in our own local terms about what we have to do. Because that smallness, taken together, is what makes us big and what makes us strong. We can't just say at the top, come and see, right? Somebody has to be saying, come with me and see. And that happens at the local level. That happens where you live and where you work and where you worship. And we want to give you every tool and support possible to be able to do that. And we may not get it right. I'll leave you with this quote from Pope Francis. Yes, in this quest to seek and find God in all things, there is still an area of uncertainty. We don't know all the answers. If one has the answers to all the questions, that is the proof that God is not with him. It means that he is a false prophet using religion for himself. That's why it's so important to consult with you, to listen to you, to not just say, here's all the answers, to avoid our normal church solutions, which are, if only. If only everyone did this. If only everyone did that, which usually boils down to if only everyone was like me. But the church is made up of everyone else and me. And so we have to build on that and be comfortable with some of the uncertainty about this stuff and pray our way through it. Amen? All right, thanks.